Can you tell us a little bit about your, when you used to be a manager and also, but also a producer, obviously, some of the, not about name dropping, but it's for having perspective and context in order for people to understand the wealth of knowledge you had already gathered um, prior to entering, what we call Afro house or soulful house music for that matter.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean,
who were
I
some of
was,
the remarkable people that you've actually helped as well, along the way?
yeah, yeah. I guess I mean, at first it was a hard slog because I had a lot of doors slammed in my face. I was a young 20-year-old, shopping these artists
Mm.
because I built a recording studio in West London, and through that recording studio, a lot of artists were coming through and hiring my studio, and then from there, they started to ask me to manage them because I had gathered knowledge from working previously at Azuli Records um, as a
Zulu
production
Records.
manager, and yeah, and then from working at
For,
Azuli,
for the sake for the sake of history, can you give people a bit of understanding what Azuli represents in the industry?
Azuli at the time was the label.
Hmm.
I think it's since been bought out by Defected, but it's run by Dave Piccioni. It was a shooter from the record store Black Market, which was the record store in the UK in the late 80s and into the 90s. I was working in Black Market. I ended up managing Black Market as a store. And then from Black Market, I
The general
also,
store. You guys were doing Louis Vega in stores and stuff like that as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And, at the time, the customers were like Tony Humphries, Morales, and, these were the guys who was kind of coming in the store or when they'll be in the UK. And because it was the store, it was the place to be. And, um, and I kind of look at that store as my university. You know what I mean? Because I learned so much from being in that building on Diable Street. From being behind the counter to actually, managing the store and its stock to, moving upstairs to working as a production manager on the label. And then the label was also distributing Dave Lee's record label, which had just started, which was Zed.
Z Records, yeah.
Records. So we were also distributing. David just started that label, and he started it through Azuli. So there were a lot of things going on, and it was kind of like Rome Anthony came out of Azuli. So many classics came out of that in the 90s, early 90s, and mid 90s, and then Azuli went on to be one of the main events in Ibiza as well. So from Azuli, I gathered a lot of information on how to run a label. Under who was I considered my mentor at the time, Dave Piccioni, who taught me a lot about the industry. And also about how to deal with artists. I learned a lot how to deal with artists from there because, you had to deal with them on a daily basis, man. And
Some serious ego trips.
it wasn't easy. So, from there, I gathered a lot of information and also I studied, in terms of reading books at the time on the music industry and finding out as much as I can about music business. As well as producing. So I kind of found myself in a position where I had this recording studio and had all these artists kind of coming through, and none of them had representation, and they were really talented. And then before I know it, they were asking me to manage them, and producers were asking me to manage them. And then I found myself shopping deals. And one of the artists I signed was Terry Walker. She couldn't. I couldn't get her a deal in the UK at the time, so I actually went to the States, and the second record label, I had a meeting with Def Jam, wanted to sign her, but they didn't want to sign in the States. They wanted to sign in the UK, so they wanted me to set her up as the first artist in the UK for Def Jam. So that's what she became. She launched Def Jam in the UK, and my way of doing things, even back then, which was I'd learned from the States because I had a previous deal in the States with another artist with DreamWorks, was to always finish your productions first, finish your album, and then take that to the label, because then you was going to the label with more strength, and you already have your vision in place. So that's kind of what I had done with my second artist, which was Terry Walker. We finished the whole album, and then we took it into the labels, and then they signed that. From those albums I've worked with, and the artists, we had Mos Def on there, Ron Campbell, the producer. We had I've worked with Beanie Man. Through one of the producers I was managed at the time, we did. There was an artist, Jamelia, who we were producing, and I came up with the idea to have Beanie Man, feature on it, and that single I think went to number 5.
Beanie Man and who?
Sorry?
Beanie Man and who on the single?
Jamelia.
Yes, Jamelia.
Produced by an artist.
Oh my God! Yes.
Produced by a producer who I was managing at the time called C Swing. So that was great because that gave us the experience of going to Jamaica to record with Beanie Man, and that actually happened again. We recorded with Beanie Man twice.
Must have been something as well, right? Recording.
Yeah,
that was at the peak of his career as well, right?
Yeah, that was an amazing experience. Worked with his name's Dirt now, but at the time it wasn't. It was R. Kelly. Worked with him at the time, and yeah.
To which respect were you guys working together? On the production aspect of things, or?
Well, he was producing. He'd written a song for one of my artists.
Wow.
So it meant us. Yeah. It meant us flying to Chicago to record with him. And even though my artist recorded the song, that album never came out. But the single did come out with another artist. It was called "I Need an Angel." It came out with it actually got quite high in the charts in the States, I believe, when it actually came out. But yeah, those kind of 10 years was really kind of like back and forth between the UK and the States. I worked a lot with these producers called Tim and Bob, who were really kind of.
Oh yeah, man. Big time.
Yeah, I learned a lot from being in. I actually recorded a whole album with Tim and Bob with my other artist, who's called Daniel DeBoer. And I learned.
Did that ever come up? Did that ever come up?
It never came out. It was on signed to DreamWorks. It never came out, which is what happens. Do you know what I mean? When in the major industry, they'll spend all this money on artists, and and it just never sees the light of day. But that experience was huge for me. Just kind of being in the studio with Tim and Bob and kind of seeing their whole process of how they do things. I learned a lot from just watching them in terms of recording vocals, producing vocals. You know what I mean? Big arrangements. You know what I mean? So that was a really big learning curve for me around that time. And we're in record plant every day. And so it'll be Pharrell in the other room producing Janet Jackson, or everyone who was kind of like who was the main producers around the late 90s were at record plant in LA, and it was amazing being around that environment.
Man, I can definitely only imagine how amazing it must have been indeed to just be part of history and play a role in history as well. And to a certain extent, it feels a bit strange that such contributions are not being celebrated the right way in our industry. And it's one of the things that I keep telling people. I mean, at least in the house music might celebrate it more, but Soulful House, for example, you don't really hear anything celebrating anybody. I mean, you might have this event in the one in Italy. Is it Groove Odyssey? No, there's no awards or no actual celebrations that are being put together. Besides, obviously now as of recently through this whole pandemic with Carlos Mena's Bembe Awards,
Yeah,
which I think is a great initiative that really
fantastic idea.
deserves, to be supported
Yeah,
financially and
yeah,
as much as possible by the whole industry, because
yeah,
it really means something.
yeah,
But like, not because you've done what you've done only, but because you're still doing what you're doing. And even if you were just doing that back then and not doing anything now, just celebrate our pioneers and the people who've really paved the way, for this generation that's coming.
yeah, yeah,
It's really something that I think we spoke, or we may speak of between ourselves, but it feels like we're not able to take action on it. It's almost
mm,
like we don't feel like we should celebrate one another the way it should be done.
mm.
Maybe I'm wrong, huh? But maybe you have a different vision on it. But I think that's, so for example, like for me.
No, I think you're right. Um, I think what happens is that when people don't feel celebrated, they'll move on, and that's a shame. You know what I mean? Because
Unfortunately,
it doesn't.
oh, good, bro.
We've got a call coming in.
I understand. Business got to be happening. Oh, good.
Let me get you back up. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so when that doesn't, I'm going to get that off.
Mhm.
Yeah, people, when it causes people to move on, and it causes people to, it doesn't allow a scene to flourish.
No,
So I agree with you when there isn't a platform there for uh, for everyone to be celebrated. Because even like, I love what Giles Peterson's doing with his worldwide awards.
yeah,
You
but you notice that he was speak about worldwide award because he's only celebrating a certain kind of music or genre or certain elite, I would say, from the industry, where it seems like we are not, or well, obviously, we are not part of that group. It's almost like, you're on the outskirts, keep doing your little thing, keep playing in that little, area over
Yeah.
there.
Well, I
That's
think
how it feels.
I think everyone
And
has
nothing
that.
against Jocelyn, but I met
Yeah.
the guy, he's great, but I think that, it's a big organization, not to cut you, but it feels like it's the guy appreciates the music, but I don't know how much of that resonates within, the structure. And
Well, I guess it's just down to everyone's curation, right? Everyone has their vision and their curation for their
true,
brand and what it is that they want to achieve and what it is that they want to support, and that has to be respected.
true.
There's enough power
Hmm.
and know-how within the genres of house, soulful house, Afro house, whatever you want to call it, to also do that. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yes.
Uh, as you've just seen with the IMS awards, the
Hmm.
ones happening. That's grown. Again, that doesn't really take into account the more underground side of house. Um,
And is it even still underground anymore? Because quite sincerely, brother, I mean,
true, true.
question has to be posed because even now I'm seeing these like actually the mainstream guys want to come to the underground because it's where it's happening now. Well, it's always been like that, right? Everybody goes and picks references or influences from the underground, but it's literally like you'll see, like I saw the other day, like recently you see Diplo doing like these events, these pop-up events. This is pure underground shit. Think about it. Like it's
Mm.
unprepared. It's very much like we grab a sound system. If the police comes and shut us down, then we find another venue. I mean, you know, this is underground mindset, and it feels like it's as long as you can take from the underground, so-called underground, great. But then when it's time to give back, you know, and it's always been like that. So this conversation is well, we're talking about it, and we're not the only ones who are talking about it. But it feels like you're right. We do. There is the capacities. There's the workforce that is available, but is there the will though?
Well, that's the question. That's the question. Is there the will? And I think as we get older, and we go through life, I think we kind of our focus turns to, well, what is it that I need to achieve for myself?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? and what is it I need to get? I need to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? What are my goals? And I think that's kind of, that's kind of what happens. And I think the world is a much smaller place now, where you're seeing people collaborate from different sides of the world. So it's not like how it used to be when a scene came out of a city or a town.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's the world's a much smaller place, so it doesn't have that kind of that strength in numbers, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the last place that has seen that and has shown us that was South Africa, in terms of
Yeah.
a country that has strength in numbers and has really built a scene together.
And built stars and
Yeah,
continues to provide them, which
yeah,
eventually
and
tends to
celebrate their own.
celebrate it, but also burn them at the same. It's very interesting. They have the full, pop culture, but very much oriented towards, the sound.
Yeah,
I would say more deep house, so deep house music, hip hop, R&B, some Afro, but definitely Afro tech. Um, and I don't know if you would agree with me, or maybe notice prior occurrences of the penetration of the Afro tech sound into the techno world.
mm,
I said in my last conversation, well, my last show, where I said I believe, to my recollection and to what I can testify as an experience that I've had myself, even though we had already been doing this Afro tech sounds
mm.
prior to it becoming, exposed to, Dixon and the whole Innovations. Kulu the song is the guy that actually was the groundbreaker in terms of, introducing the
Without a doubt.
Afro. Yeah, we agree,
Without,
right?
without a doubt, without a doubt. Uh, the Kulo was actually the first producer I heard
Mm-hmm.
from South Africa that really blew my mind, and that was with
Same.
Zulu Warriors, um, which I actually signed because I
Mm-hmm.
loved that track so much. I think that was kind of like the second or third track on Tribe release.
Was it a license you took from Solistic, or you actually signed it? Because he was already
No,
signed to. But
I licensed it.
you licensed it, so it was already
I
to,
licensed
yeah.
it.
So because it
Yeah,
was already grabbed by Solistic at the time, Black
yeah,
Office label at the
yes,
time.
yes, yes. And Bright Forest,
My God,
which was
yo,
so when I heard those tracks, I was just like, who is this guy, man? Because
monster.
what he was doing hadn't been heard.
Yeah,
Hadn't been
I
heard.
told, I told, I
Yeah.
told.
So yeah, so that he was already on that level at
Mm,
that time.
I
He was
agree.
always on that level, and then he came with Dragon's End, which I know that we were both trying to
Yeah,
sign.
you remember, right? But I was
We both,
given
we
the.
were both trying to license that.
But I got the license though. I never the I got the license. I went to South Africa. I got the license,
Right, right.
but I never released it because I guess at the time I didn't really have, the yeah. I didn't really have it like that. So
Okay,
I
yeah,
got scared by his lawyer, who was
yeah.
like,
Well, we all
well,
know that story. Yeah,
oh my God, this guy, man.
yeah,
And I just was like, you know what? I just never did anything with it. But
yeah,
what
yeah,
a tune. But I think if you release Dragon's End right now with a couple of remixes, even just it stands
yeah.
test of time.
I still play it. I still play it.
And
And
people say, is it new? Is it
yeah,
so?
yeah. When that came, when Kulo bought that after he had been doing this instrumental material, I was just like, wow.
It's Fatima, who also had a very amazing career afterwards.
Yeah, yeah.
Fatima on vocals, man.
And he was like 17 at the time, if I remember.
He was
17.
really, really young because I remember when we did that Sundiata's Rebels project at my place. He was really young. I can't remember how old he was, but he was really, really young.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And very humble, very humble, very, very humble guy, man. and it's amazing to see the progress, and it's amazing to see that you and I and a couple of others have played a we've played a role, but we've also been fortunate to play a role in launching quite a few careers
Yeah.
in their territories, because they were looking up to what we were doing here as well, right?
Yeah.
But we were looking up to them all the
Yeah.
way down to South Africa, and we're like, oh, we want to get into that market. They were like, no, we want to get to yours. It was very interesting. Yeah. And remember that whole craze of everybody trying to move to South Africa.
Yeah, right.
I was even contemplating that, but I was like, no.
Yeah. No, for me, it was always about how I saw South Africa around that 2007, 2008 time. Just reminded me of 20 years earlier, 1988, when it was just when house had just landed. You know what I mean? In the shores in the clubs of the UK. That's what it reminded me of. It just sounded that fresh to me, and so and I was hearing all these different, and I'm sure you were too. You were hearing all the different styles. Do you know what I mean? So it was evident that this was all going to. You was hearing the vocal style. You were hearing the techie vibe. You were hearing the more traditional led material. So you could see that this is all going to go in different directions. There's going to be genres spawning out of this. I remember I did some interviews when I was out there and stuff, and that's what I was saying. I was saying, what do you think of South African music? I think it's the freshest thing I've heard in a long time, and there's going to be so many genres that's going to come out from this. And for me, it was about getting that music over here, when I was in the UK and to the West, and to try and getting it into the ears of, you need to hear this. You need to hear what's coming from there. And also to kind of like, for those that couldn't hear it, to give them the remix so they could understand it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was important for me to kind of like, license material and also give it a remix so it had, it had an introduction. Maybe because it wasn't so intimidating to some.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sure. I
So
agree with
that's kind of my early strategy with it.